Chapter 742. This time, Chu Xiu really didn't plan to stand out, but it seemed that someone was more high-profile than him. Chu Xiu sent a voice transmission to Mr. Liu, who was beside him. Who is this guy? Is he powerful? Mr. Liu came here on behalf of the Phaseless Demon sect. He was a new martial arts master of the sect. Although he wasn't the strongest, he definitely had the greatest potential. Therefore, this kind of mission that was not very dangerous but had obvious benefits was usually carried out by Mr. Liu. Mr. Liu looked at Chu Xiu in surprise and said, "You don't know him? Then you must have heard of his master. He's the 10 Directions Old Devil, Yuan Tianfeng of the Devil Cliff Cave in the East Pole Mountain. He was already a big shot in the Jianghu decades ago. He's Yuan Tianfeng's eldest disciple, 9 Red Abyss Xing Situ. He used to be ranked more than 40 on the ranking list, but because he dared to kill the disciples of the 5 major sword sects to forge swords, he was chased for thousands of miles. Therefore, he has been hiding in the dark and was removed from the ranking list." Hearing Mr. Liu's words, Chu Xiu finally had some impression of him. After all, there were only so many powerhouses in the Jianghu. His master, 10 Directions Old Devil Yuan Tianfeng, was a powerhouse in the true fire spirit refinement state. He was also the big shot who shouted at the East Emperor yesterday and asked for help. He became famous a few decades ago. After stepping into the true fire spirit refinement state, he defeated 2 powerhouses in the true fire spirit refinement state from the true martial sect and the Chunyang Dao sect, crippling one and seriously injuring the other. However, when he attacked Longhu Mountain, he was hit by an old Taoist who served the old Taoist master with a horsetail whisk. Since then, he fled to the Devil Cliff Cave in the East Pole Mountain in the East Sea to recuperate and cultivate. It seemed that he also took in many disciples. And Xing Situ was very bold like his master. His nickname was the 9 Red Abyss. In fact, this was the name of the 2 murderous demon swords. They were once divine weapons refined by the Kunlun devil cult, but they were destroyed during the demon-slaying war. After obtaining the forging method from Yuan Tianfeng, Xing Situ began collecting materials. In order to speed up the process, he slaughtered the disciples of the 5 major sword sects and used their blood to forge the sword. Although he succeeded in forging the sword in the end, the cultivators from the 5 great sword factions chased after him for a distance of over 500 kilometers. He dared not show himself for over a decade. Generally speaking, this pair of master and disciple were extremely daring people, but at the same time, they had an extremely high reputation in the Hidden Devil clan. After all, they had killed their way out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Of course, from Chu Xiu's point of view, and even Mr. Liu's point of view, the actions of the master and disciple were not as good as those of Chu Xiu. In the past, the number of people Chu Xiu had provoked might not be less than theirs. At that time, Chu Xiu could also choose to hide underground and wait for a few decades to pass before coming out again. In any case, his cultivation was high enough and his lifespan was sufficient. But Chu Xiu chose to gather all his strength and fight against the alliance of the righteous sects. In the end, he won and could walk in the Jianghu openly. He was more daring than the master and disciple. Although the 2 of them acted crazily, they ran away after the madness, which was somewhat anticlimactic. Chu Xiu chuckled. So what if he was famous? Back then, he was chased all over the Jianghu. Now he came out to pretend to be a senior. On the other side, Xing Situ was talking about his plan, but Chu Xiu's laughter was extremely harsh, which made him frown. "Chu Xiu, what are you laughing at?" Ignoring him, Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Let's go." With that, Chu Xiu, Mei Qinglian, and Mr. Liu left with some of the Diabolism warriors who were on good terms with Wei Shiya. Xing Situ said angrily, "Chu Xiu, what do you mean? You want to leave before the task given by the great ancestors is completed? What are you trying to do?" Chu Xiu turned around and said lightly, "To complete the task, of course. The great ancestors didn't say who would be in charge of this matter. What are you doing standing here and telling us what to do? Of course, I'm a kind person. I won't stop you if you want to be the commander, but don't think about ordering me. Who knows if you will use your position for personal gain and deliberately send people you don't know to die, or if you will monopolize most of the treasures in the end." None of the people present were idiots. They had thought about what Chu Xiu said before. Xing Situ had taken the lead with a show of strength. Of course, it wasn't out of goodwill that he wanted to be the commander, but because everyone was in a state of disunity. If Xing Situ were to be the commander, he would be the one to take the initiative. However, most of the people present didn't want to offend Situ Xing, so they didn't say anything. They didn't expect Chu Xiu to say it so directly. Xing Situ pointed at Chu Xiu, and his face was instantly filled with anger. Nonsense! Why would I secretly plot against my fellow disciples when we are in a crisis? In fact, Chu Xiu really thought too much of Xing Situ. He really didn't want to harm anyone. The people present were all the trusted successors of the various big shots of the Yinma bloodline, and there were also some well-known branches of the Yinma bloodline. It was hard to say which one of them was angered, so he just wanted to get some benefits at the end. At least half of Chu Xiu's words were slander against him. Chu Xiu waved a hand casually. I don't care if that's what you think, but it's impossible for us to all listen to you. The forefather wants results, not the process. It doesn't matter if we attack together or not. As long as we get rid of the remaining evildoers in the end, everything will be fine. So now let's get ready to move. If you want to follow, don't listen and don't cause trouble. Then I won't refuse you. If you want to cause trouble, then get out of the way. Otherwise, it won't look good on everyone. Xing Situ stood up and said coldly, That's easy for you to say. If you take some people with you, everyone's strength will be lacking. If we fail the mission, all of us will be implicated, and the Yinma clan will be humiliated. Then what else do you want? Chu Xiu smiled coldly. You can go, but the others stay. The atmosphere instantly became tense. 2 long swords, one black and one red, appeared in Xing Situ's hands. You want people to stay? You think you're worthy? You didn't even dare show your face when you were chased by the righteous sects, but now you dare to be rude to me? Chu Xiu, you're courting death. Xing Situ snorted and slashed out with his 2 swords. One of them carried a murderous aura, and when it was unsheathed, there was even a surge of blood-red light. It was a terrifying sight. The other carried a deep aura of death. When it slashed out, the sound of ghosts wailing and gods howling filled the air. It was a terrifying sight. In order to forge these 2 demonic weapons, Xing Situ had killed countless people, and had even been chased for thousands of miles. But now that the 9-yin red abyss had appeared, it was indeed worthy of the price he had paid. Chu Xiu formed a seal with both hands, and his body shone with a dazzling golden Buddhist light. His qi and blood were boiling, and the great sun-changing technique was unleashed. Behind Chu Xiu, the Vairocana Dharma idol coalesced, and the colorless fixed palm imprint was formed. In an instant, the universe was reversed. The golden Buddhist light twisted everything, and the power destroyed the murderous aura and the boundless demonic aura. With Chu Xiu and Xing Situ at the center, their stellar energy exploded. If it wasn't for the protective formation in the underground palace, their attacks would have completely destroyed the place. Chu Xiu didn't move, and neither did Xing Situ. However, he had already sheathed his 2 swords and covered his hands in his robes, afraid that others would see his trembling hands. There was a sudden silence. Chu Xiu's reputation had spread far and wide. He had killed a cultivator at the True Fire Spirit Refinement Realm. Although he had used some tricks, a battle record was a battle record. At least he had the strength to do so. Now that they had seen Chu Xiu in action, the power he displayed was indeed worthy of Chu Xiu's reputation. Everyone knew that Chu Xiu cultivated all 3 paths of Taoism, Buddhism, and demonic. Right now, Chu Xiu was only using a Buddhist technique to fight evenly with Xing Situ, a demonic grandmaster who had once been ranked on the golden list. If he used his famous demonic blade, even Xing Situ might not be able to withstand it. Of course, they didn't know that even now, Xing Situ was barely holding his own. Chu Xiu said coldly, Xing Situ, put away your useless schemes. The war between the righteous and demonic factions is about to begin. And you're still trying to play your little tricks? I don't have the time to play with you. We'll wipe out the remnants of the Earth Demon Hall based on our own abilities. I can't be bothered with you, so don't provoke me. With that, Chu Xiu waved his hand. Mei Qinglian and Mr. Lu followed Chu Xiu and left. Those who had good relations with Wei Shiya's faction naturally chose to follow Chu Xiu. There were also some weaker cultivators who thought about it and chose to follow Chu Xiu. At this moment, a young man in his 30s, who was dressed in a crimson robe, suddenly revealed a smile on his face as he followed behind Chu Xiu and the others. Of the 10 martial Dao grandmasters present, 4 chose to follow Chu Xiu, and the remaining 30 or so cultivators chose to leave with Chu Xiu. Xing Situ's face was ashen. Chu Xiu had only joined the Yinma clan for a short period of time. How could he gather so many people to follow him? In fact, Xing Situ thought too much. The others chose to follow Chu Xiu purely because his reputation in the Yinma clan wasn't very good. As for Chu Xiu, his reputation was only bad in the righteous Dao sects. He had never harmed anyone in the Yinma clan. Moreover, with the strength that Chu Xiu displayed just now, although his foundation and connections in the Yinma clan weren't obvious, it was enough to make some people choose to follow him. After leaving the hall, Mr. Lu looked curiously at the young man in the crimson robe. He said in surprise, "Shen Xuening, why did you come? I remember that the ancestor of your Scarlet Drill demonic sect seems to have a good relationship with Yuan Tianfang." Chapter 743. Shen Xuening, who looked young, was actually older than Mr. Lu. Shen Xuening was a martial arts grandmaster from the Scarlet Demonic sect. Although he wasn't famous in the Hidden Devil lineage, he wasn't insignificant either. It could only be said that he was very low-key. However, the Scarlet Demonic sect was a standard example of a person who didn't speak much. Usually, they didn't reveal themselves, and they might not even make a move for more than 10 years. However, once they made a move, it would definitely be a matter of family destruction. Moreover, the Scarlet Demonic sect was an elite sect. Although they didn't have many disciples, they were all elites. The old ancestor of the Scarlet Demonic sect had a good relationship with Yuan Tianfang, so in Mr. Lu's opinion, he should be following Xing Situ. Why would he follow them? Shen Xuening smiled and said, "The one who has a good relationship with Yuan Tianfang is my old ancestor, not me. Xing Situ is a scheming person. If I don't say anything, I'll feel depressed. If I say anything, it will definitely cause a rift between me and Xing Situ. I might as well not be with him. Moreover, I have confidence in Brother Chu. Even my old ancestor said that among the younger generation of the Hidden Devil lineage, Brother Chu has the most potential. Those who are valued by Senior Wei are not mediocre." Shen Xuening wasn't flattering Chu Xiu. The old ancestor of the Scarlet Demonic sect really said that. Wei Shuya was famous in the Yinma clan not only because of his qualifications and identity, but also because of his judgment of people. Earlier, Chu Wuji and Mei Qinglian were all discovered by Wei Shuya. Later, when he visited the phaseless demonic sect, he met Mr. Lu and said that Mr. Lu would become a great person in the future. Those who were valued by Wei Shuya were almost all mediocre, and the same was true for Chu Xiu. Hearing Shen Xuening's words, Mr. Lu nodded and didn't mind. The Scarlet Demonic sect was low-key and neutral in the Hidden Devil lineage, so it wasn't annoying. Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Since that's the case, I welcome Brother Shen. Such a small matter actually doesn't need to be calculated." Putting everything else aside, Shen Xuening was a person who knew the rules very well. His actual age was older than Mr. Lu, and in terms of seniority, he was also higher than Chu Xiu. But now he called Chu Xiu Brother Chu, and directly used strength to determine seniority, which made people feel comfortable. Shen Xuening nodded and said, "Xing Situ is well prepared. I'm afraid he has been planning everything since yesterday. What do you plan to do, Brother Chu?" The rest of the demonic path martial artists were also staring at Chu Xiu. Since they had followed Chu Xiu here, their interests were naturally tied to Chu Xiu. Although they didn't expect to get any benefits, it was still good to have some soup to drink. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes. "Plan before you act. Xing Situ did a good job. Since he has prepared the information, we naturally have to understand the current situation of the Earth Demon Hall." Shen Xuening slapped his head and said, "That's right, I almost forgot. Brother Chu, you are good friends with Xie Xiaolu, the disciple of the World Alliance's Chen Qingdi. The World Alliance is located in West Chu, so it should be very easy for you to obtain this information." Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Professional matters should be handled by professionals. Even if the World Alliance can obtain some information, it's only superficial information. Even if Xing Situ sent people to inquire about it, they only found some general information. The real details are not in West Chu, but in Eastern Qi. Where? Wind Sweeping Building. At this time, in the headquarters of Wind Sweeping Building in Eastern Qi's Nanliang City, Vice Floor Master, Three-Eyed God, Qi Yuanli was leisurely basking in the sun. Beside him was a pot of hot tea and a stack of fennel beans. From time to time, he would pick up a bean and throw it into his mouth, then take a sip of tea. For Qi Yuanli, this kind of leisurely life was the most enjoyable. Although there were many people in the wind-sweeping tower who criticized him for being too idle, Qi Yuanli handled the matters that needed to be handled in an orderly manner. In fact, he was even more capable than the other vice-building masters. At this time, the door was knocked open. Qi Yuanli frowned and said, "Didn't I say not to disturb me when I'm basking in the sun? It's not like the war between the righteous and demonic factions has started. Why are you all panicking?" At this time, Qi Yuanli suddenly felt that something was wrong. He turned around and saw a disciple of the wind-sweeping building standing there with a bitter smile. Chu Xiao and the other martial Dao masters were all standing there looking at him. "Floor Master Qi, long time no see." Chu Xiao greeted with a smile. Qi Yuanli wiped his cold sweat and said with a forced smile, "Vice Floor Master, it's just a Vice Floor Master. Why did Official Chu come to my wind-sweeping building?" To be honest, Qi Yuanli did not want to see Chu Xiao at this time, especially during this sensitive period. A storm was brewing in the pugilistic world. Wind-sweeping buildings specialized in intelligence. How could they not know what state the righteous and demonic factions were in? It was like a barrel of gunpowder that could explode at any time. However, wind-sweeping building was a neutral force. They did not want to help the demonic factions, but at the same time, they did not want to offend the righteous factions. Therefore, they could only keep a low profile, afraid that the two factions would come knocking on their door. But now, not only did Chu Xiao come knocking on their door, but he also came with 3 martial Dao masters. Yin demon sex saintess, Mei Qinglian, was quite famous in the pugilistic world. Of course, most people only knew her as Madame Mei, but they did not know that she was Saintess Mei. There was also the phaseless demon sex new martial Dao master, Lu Jin, who addressed others as Mr. Lu. He led the phaseless demon sect on many missions, and he was already quite famous before he became a martial Dao master. Finally, Qi Yuanli thought about it and found the corresponding person. Scarlet demon sex baleful Yin demon sword, Shen Xuening. Although she was not famous in the pugilistic world, every time she made a move, her sword would be stained with blood, and she would die. There were probably 3 or 4 martial Dao masters who had died in her hands. She was decisive and ruthless, and she had never lost a single battle. 4 martial Dao masters from the hidden demon sect came looking for him together. This made Qi Yuanli feel that they did not come with good intentions, and he no longer had the mood to bask in the sun. Chu Xiao sat at the table beside Qi Yuanli, poured himself a cup of tea, and said, "Don't worry, Tower Lord Qi. We are not here to look for trouble. We came to Wind Sweeping Tower to buy information." Qi Yuanli revealed a look of embarrassment. Of course, he knew that they were here to buy information, but the problem was that it was a crucial moment in the war between the righteous and demonic sections. Would Wind Sweeping Tower dare to sell information about the righteous sects to Chu Xiao and the others? Chu Xiao saw that Qi Yuanli's expression was a little ugly, so he waved his hand and said, "Tower Lord Qi, you misunderstand. I know the rules, and I will not make things difficult for you. I am not buying information about the righteous sects, but about the traitor of the Kunlun devil cult, the Earth Demon Hall." Hearing this, Qi Yuanli immediately heaved a sigh of relief. There was no problem with people from the demonic sects buying information about people from the demonic sections. As he said this, Qi Yuanli took out a jade book and kept flipping through it. Finally, he copied it into a jade talisman and handed it to Chu Xiao. "Thank you, Tower Lord Qi. What's the price?" Qi Yuanli immediately made a gesture of invitation and said, "The remnants of the Earth Demon Hall do not have much influence in the underworld. It is not considered a big piece of information. Official Chu can just take it and leave." At this moment, Qi Yuanli did not dare to ask for money, He could not wait to send Chu Xiu, this god of plague, away. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "That won't do. I, Chu Xiu, do not have the habit of asking for things for free. Friendship is friendship, and rules are rules. These are elixirs produced by Maijinwu Hall. There is only one of them in the underworld. Tower Lord Qi, take it. If it is useful, it can be used to promote Maijinwu Hall." As he said this, Chu Xiu threw a bottle of elixirs to Qi Yuanli and left with his people. The Zhenwu Hall had established a foothold in the northern Yan, and received a lot of filial piety from those aristocratic families. Chu Xiu had people set up a pill shop that specialized in refining elixirs. After all, one should not let one's own fertile water flow into one's own field. After Qi Yuanli and the others left, he took a look at the name on the elixir, and almost vomited blood. It turned out to be an ordinary blood recovery elixir. What was the difference between this and taking it for free? Qi Yuanli looked at the disciple of Wind Sweeping Building who was still stunned at the side, and threw the elixir to him. He snorted and said, "This is your reward. Hurry up and get out." Qi Yuanli shook his head unhappily. Chu Xiu's actions had ruined his mood to bask in the sun. It was really annoying. After leaving Wind Sweeping Building, Shen Xiuening, who was following behind Chu Xiu, had a look of interest on his face. He finally understood the gap between Chu Xiu and Xing Situ, and even himself, a warrior from the Yinma clan. This was not a gap in strength, but a gap in the way they acted and the overall situation. Martial artists like them who came from the Hidden Devil bloodline, no matter what they did, would always limit themselves to the Hidden Devil bloodline. Especially for people like Xing Situ, who was like a wandering soldier. He might have the strength, but he would run after killing people and come back after hiding. He really did not have the overall situation to speak of. However, Chu Xiu was different. His connections were all over the underworld, and of course his hatred was also all over the underworld. Just like this time, Xing Situ could only inquire about the news through other Devil Path rogue cultivators, but Chu Xiu had already used his connections to get detailed information from Wind Sweeping Building. Shen Xiuening could see that this was definitely not the first time Qi Yuanli and Chu Xiu had met. This was only because it was Chu Xiu. If it was Xing Situ, he would probably put on a good show of breaking into Wind Sweeping Building. So after so many years, the number of people from the Yinma clan who could stand upright in the underworld could be counted on one hand, and Chu Xiu was one of them. Chu Xiu glanced at the contents of the report, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. He said, "These remnants of the Earth Demon Hall are interesting. All of them have changed their identities and joined forces with the West Chu Imperial Court. They have become members of a secret organization under the West Chu Imperial Court." The methods of the Earth Demon Hall were very similar to those of Chu Xiu. They were also not accepted by the righteous path, so they chose to cooperate with the Imperial Court, which had nothing to do with the righteous and demonic path. The only difference was that Chu Xiu had many choices at the time, but the Earth Demon Hall had no choice. This was the only way they could exchange for a chance of survival. Chapter 744. In West Chu's capital Jiangdu, the leader of the 3rd Spy Division, Xiao Qi, returned to the hall with a tired body. On the surface, he was the leader of the Spy Division, but in reality, he was a descendant of the Earth Demon Division. Of course, this secret identity could not be seen. Otherwise it would attract a group of mad dogs. In the eyes of Xiao Qi and the other Earth Demon Division members, the Hidden Demon Branch were mad dogs, pure mad dogs. The Kunlun Demon sect had already been annihilated for a few hundred years. Why must they still hold on to those grudges of the past? If there were no mad dogs spying on them, why would the Earth Demon Division try to curry favor with the moon-worshipping cult, and now the West Chu royal family? There was no need to talk about the moon-worshipping cult. They were on the verge of collapse. Luckily they had made preparations in advance, and also had the West Chu royal family. Otherwise it would be their turn to suffer. However, the West Chu royal court was not easy to get along with. In recent years, the Earth Demon Division had suffered greatly. In fact, forces like the Secret Intelligence Division existed in all 3 countries. Eastern Qi was the White Tiger Division. Eastern Qi was rich and powerful, directly cooperating with one of the 4 spirits, the Fierce White Tiger Division. They didn't even need to change their name. Northern Yen had recently cooperated with Chu Xiu to establish the Suppression Martial Division. It was said that they were doing well. Only their West Chu Secret Intelligence Division was established the earliest. The Earth Demon Hall was one of the halls of the Kunlun demon sect, and their strength wasn't weak, but they were the most miserable one. The reason was because the West Chu royal family was too weak. When the royal court cooperated with the Jianghu, the royal court had to take the lead. At the very least, they had to provide a strong enough backing. In the end, the West Chu royal court was so cowardly that they didn't dare speak to the large sects in West Chu. In Sichuan, the Tang family's words were more effective than the royal court, so what could the spy division do? There was nothing they could do. Xiaoqi walked into the hall. There were other guard leaders inside. They were all at the unity of the world realm, and were responsible for patrolling the surroundings of Jiangdu. Seeing Xiaoqi come in, someone asked, "Is there any movement today?" Xiaoqi shook his head and said, "Not at the moment. However, a storm is brewing. The war between the righteous and demonic factions is about to break out at any moment. It's best to be careful." Someone laughed coldly and said, "Let's fight. It's best if we can get Mo and his group of mad dogs involved. In the end, both sides will suffer." Everyone sneered. However, they knew that it was almost impossible. The people of the Inma clan were not idiots. Of course, the less they participated in this kind of thing, the better. Xiaoqi suddenly asked, "By the way, is Chu Xiu also from the Inma clan?" Someone said, "I think so. The Inma clan has been keeping a low profile for a long time, but this kid is the most flamboyant. He even set up a Zhenwu Hall in the Northern Yen region. It's said that the Northern Yen martial artists don't dare to speak loudly." At this point, everyone present revealed a look of envy, jealousy, and hatred. Chu Xiu was very comfortable in the Northern Yen region. No one was like them. They obviously joined forces with the Western Chu royal family, but in the end, it seemed like they were helping the Western Chu royal family to clean up the mess. Xiaoqi sneered and said, "It's best if Chu Xiu is also involved in this matter. If something happens to him, I will suggest to the hall master that we go to the Northern Yen region and cooperate with the Northern Yen emperor to enter the Zhenwu Hall. At that time, we won't be as sullen as we are now. Even if I give you the Zhenwu Hall, can you play around?" Hearing this voice, all the people of the Earth Demon Hall had goosebumps all over their bodies. They were shocked. This was the secret entrance of their spy division. In fact, it looked like an ordinary medicine shop from the outside, but there was a formation in the inner hall. But now someone had appeared here without a sound, and the formation did not react at all. Just how strong was this person? When everyone turned around, they saw a handsome young man dressed in black, surrounded by specks of demonic chi, with a strange smile on his face. What really frightened them was the young man's gaze. He looked at them as if he was looking at a group of pigs that could be slaughtered at any time. "Who are you? Do you know where this place is?" Xiaoqi couldn't help but speak with a trembling voice. It wasn't that they didn't know the famous Chu Xiu, but that Chu Xiu was too different from them. Although they were just talking about Chu Xiu, it was just aimlessly chatting. In fact, one was in the Northern Yen region, and the other was in Western Chu. They never thought that Chu Xiu would appear in front of them. They didn't have the time to go to the wind-sweeping building to buy a portrait of Chu Xiu. They weren't Chu Xiu fans. "Didn't you just say that you wanted to enter my Zhenwu Hall? Why don't you recognize me now?" Xiaoqi shuddered and shouted, "Run!" Chu Xiu's identity in the Zhenwu Hall didn't make them afraid. What really scared them was Chu Xiu's identity as a member of the Hidden Devil clan. The two sides had a death feud. There were 5 people present, and they all fled in different directions with tacit understanding. At this moment, a crimson sword, tainted with killing intent, appeared out of nowhere and easily pierced through one of the cultivators. This was Shen Xuening. A jade-like hand lightly touched, and in the midst of the dancing demonic energy, a warrior's body twitched. Blood flowed from his orifices, but he still had a strange smile on his face. This was Mei Qinglian. On the other side, a giant demonic hand fell from the sky and instantly crushed a warrior into minced meat. It was simple and brutal. It was Mr. Lu who didn't have any skills. Seeing these three attack, Chu Xiu's face turned green. After getting the information from Wind Sweeping Building, Chu Xiu was prepared to find a base of the Secret Intelligence Division, and then slowly interrogate them about the current situation of the Earth Demon Hall. But now these people had come and killed them. How the hell was he going to interrogate them? Don't kill them, leave them alive. Chu Xiu waved his hand, and 2 streaks of spiritual energy slapped the last 2 people to the ground, so that they wouldn't be killed by this group of people again. Shen Xuening sheathed her sword and said with some embarrassment, "Sorry, it's a personal habit." Mei Qinglian and Mr. Lu shrugged at the same time. These traitors were too hateful. There was nothing they could do. Xiao Qi and another person from the Earth Demon Hall were brought over. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and asked, "Tell me, where are the people of the Earth Demon Hall now? How is their strength? Where are the things you obtained from the Kunlun Devil Cult?" The Earth Demon Hall martial artist struggled to give a cold snort, not saying a word. The grudge between the Earth Demon Hall and the Hidden Devil Clan had been going on for hundreds of years. These years they had been hiding in West Chu, but it wasn't that they hadn't gone out. Even in West Chu, as long as they were discovered by the Hidden Devil Clan, both sides would fight to the death. So the martial artists of the Earth Demon Hall had always been taught by their elders to be incomparably respectful when they met people from the moon-worshipping cult and the Bright Devil Clan. If they met martial artists from the righteous sects, they could admit defeat, but if they met martial artists from the Hidden Devil Clan, they had to be stubborn to the end, or they would fight to the death. Seeing this scene, Chu Xiu nodded his head and said, "Oh." The next moment, he reached out and immediately broke the neck of that martial artist. That Earth Demon Hall martial artist looked at Chu Xiu in disbelief before he died. He really couldn't believe that Chu Xiu would kill him just like that. This guy didn't play by the rules. Didn't he say he would interrogate him? If he didn't say a word, he would kill him. Was it coercion or bribery? What about torture? Why did he skip so many steps? Actually, that Earth Demon Hall martial artist only had one thing on his mind before he died. He was really afraid of death, and he wasn't that stubborn. Perhaps if Chu Xiu interrogated him again, he would have said it. It was a pity that Chu Xiu was too lazy to say another word. Seeing Chu Xiu look over, Xiao Qi immediately shouted, I'll talk. Right now, other than the vice leader of the Earth Demon Hall in the capital, who is also the head of the spy department, the other 6 people are scattered all over West Chu. They all have the strength of a martial grandmaster. As for the things we obtained from the Kunlun Devil Cult, they are all with the leader and vice leader. We don't have the qualifications to touch them. After pouring out everything in one breath, Xiao Qi looked at Chu Xiu with an expectant gaze. Official Chu, I've said everything. Can you spare my life? After this matter, I will no longer be a member of the Earth Demon Hall, and I will not take a single step in West Chu. Chu Xiu patted his head and said with a smile, Relax, I've already asked everything I wanted to ask. Of course I won't kill anyone. After saying this, Chu Xiu stood up and turned to leave. But before Xiao Qi could let out a sigh of relief, Chu Xiu softly said, I'll leave it to you. As soon as his voice fell, Chu Xiu heard a pitiful cry. That pitiful cry was filled with deep hatred and resentment. Chu Xiu had an indifferent expression on his face. He really wasn't lying, he didn't kill him. As for whether the others killed him or not, that wasn't something Chu Xiu could control. In truth, Chu Xiu didn't have any enmity with the people of the Earth Demon Hall. They had indeed betrayed the Kunlun Devil Cult before, but Chu Xiu wasn't from the Kunlun Devil Cult, so he didn't have that much hatred for them. Their life and death didn't matter to him, but the things on their bodies, Chu Xiu really wanted them. The products of the Kunlun Devil Cult were all top-quality goods. This was publicly acknowledged. That Xing Situ obtained the refining methods of the 2 demon weapons, and became a master. The Demon Heart Hall inheritance that Chu Xiu obtained was not bad either. Right now, the Earth Demon Hall not only had things left behind by their ancestors, but also things from other Kunlun Devil Cult halls. The value of these things could be imagined. But the strength of the Earth Demon Hall was a bit weaker than Chu Xiu had imagined. It must be known that in the past, a hall of the Kunlun Devil Cult was also filled with experts. The hall master of the Kunlun Devil Cult could completely stand shoulder to shoulder with the sect masters and patriarchs of some large sects in the outside world. For example, the Demon Heart Hall inheritance that Chu Xiu obtained, the Hall Master Nangong Wuming's strength, in Chu Xiu's opinion, was at least at the true fire spirit refinement realm. The Earth Demon Hall had betrayed them and obtained so many benefits, but the result was that they were getting worse and worse. Why bother? Chapter 745. When Mr. Liu and the others slaughtered the people in this secret base, they saw Chu Xiu standing with his hands behind his back. At this time, Chu Xiu really had the demeanor of a leader. He was only responsible for giving orders, and the others were responsible for killing. Of course, no one said anything. After all, Chu Xiu's strength was there, and everything was under his command. Chu Xiu had the qualifications to do so. Mr. Liu frowned and said, "This Earth Demon Hall actually has branches all over West Chu. This is a bit troublesome. It's too much of a waste of time." Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, "Since it's a waste of time to separate them, why don't we gather them all together?" "How do we gather them?" Chu Xiu pointed to the back and said, "Leave 2 words in blood, just write debt collection." Mr. Liu said with some doubt, "That's it? Are you sure the people from the Earth Demon Hall can understand it?" Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "It's to make them look like they understand, but not really understand. Think about it, if a branch of your phaseless demon sect was destroyed by someone, and there were even some words left behind, what would your first reaction be?" Mr. Liu suddenly understood. Of course, he would gather the rest of the disciples to discuss how to deal with this matter. Although this person died in the Secret Intelligence Division, it was clear that he came for the Earth Demon Hall. So even if the Secret Intelligence Division was responsible for monitoring the entire West Chu martial arts world, when the time came, all the high-level members of the Earth Demon Hall would gather together to discuss how to deal with it. Shen Xuening suddenly said, "If the other party's gathering place is not in Jiangdu City, then wouldn't we have waited in vain?" Chu Xiu pointed to the top and said, "There is still a Deputy Hall Master of the Earth Demon Hall in Jiangdu City. He is one of the higher-ups of the Earth Demon Hall. Tomorrow's matter will definitely be discovered by him first. If the Earth Demon Hall's gathering place is not in Jiangdu City, he will definitely make a move. So we just need to keep an eye on him, and that will be enough." Everyone present heaved a sigh of relief when they heard that Chu Xiu had made the appropriate arrangements. In fact, this group of people in the Yinma clan were not all simple-minded people, but most of them did not belong to a sect. They were all rogue cultivators. There were only a few people in the clan. In addition to the master, there were only a few martial brothers. They had no experience in doing things. They could kill people, but when it came to handling specific matters, they were still inferior to those disciples from large sections. The next morning, in the hall of the Secret Intelligence Division, a dignified middle-aged man dressed in black looked at the corpse on the ground, suppressing his extreme anger. He was the Deputy Hall Master of the Earth Demon Hall, as well as the head of the Jiangdu City Secret Intelligence Division, Lin Baohuang. Lin Baohuang sent someone to check on the situation at the foot of Jiangdu City. He did not expect to see dead bodies all over the ground. The Earth Demon Hall hadn't been doing too well in recent years. On one hand, they were the remnants of the Kunlun Devil cult, and on the other hand, they were the traitors of the Kunlun Devil cult. Simply put, they were like Zhu Beiji looking in the mirror, with 2 sides that were not human. Although the West Chu land was protected by the moon-worshipping cult, the moon-worshipping cult only promised that no one would come to find trouble with them, and would not help them. So in these years, the Earth Demon Hall could only accept a limited number of disciples. Even if there were disciples, their talent was not too good. For someone like Lin Baohuang, who was a martial arts grandmaster, he already had the qualifications to establish his own sect outside, but in the West Chu land, he still had to be very low-key. Other than the matters of the Secret Intelligence Division, he basically did not care about anything else. He didn't expect that even so, something would still happen. At this time, not only were there people from the Earth Demon Hall in the hall, there was also a man wearing a tight gray warrior suit with a folding fan on his back. Although he was already middle-aged, he was still incomparably handsome. The Earth Demon Hall was also the West Chu Secret Intelligence Division. Now that something had happened to the Earth Demon Hall, West Chu naturally sent people over. This middle-aged man was one of the West Chu consecrated elders, named Meng Jing. It was said that he had a part of the West Chu royal family's bloodline. When he was in the unity of the heaven realm, he had already been promoted to an elder of the West Chu consecrated hall. Otherwise, according to the rules of the West Chu court, only a martial arts grandmaster could become an elder of the West Chu consecrated hall. Lin Baohuang suppressed his anger as he said, "Sir Meng, when you were young, you roamed the Jianghu and even served in the Guanzhong torture room. I wonder if you can see who did this from these corpses?" This Meng Jing's path was very wild, and he had never heard of him having a master, but he had roamed the Jianghu since he was young. He had entered many sects in the Jianghu, those that didn't require a background. He would often stay for a period of time, and when the higher-ups were about to give him an important task, he would leave. This Meng Jing had joined the Guanzhong torture room for a period of time when Chu Kuanga was in charge of the Guanzhong torture room, even becoming a patrol inspector. Only after Chu Kuanga died did he leave the Guanzhong torture room. Meng Jing looked over the corpses and finally shook his head as he said, "The person who did this was too strong. There were almost no traces left. One of them was strangled to death and the other two were killed by demonic qi, being directly killed. The last person should have been killed by an illusion or some secret spiritual technique, and was directly killed in the illusion. Only the last person was killed by a sword, and the wound and aura are very similar to a person. The martial arts master of the Scarlet Drill Demon sect, Baleful Yin Demon Sword Shinshuening. This person rarely makes a move, but none of his subordinates survive. Although he is low-key, his strength is not to be underestimated." Meng Jing had a faint smile on his face as he pointed to the words debt collection written in blood on the wall and said, "Sir Lin, if this matter was targeted at my West Chu, the Imperial Court would definitely take action. But now it seems that these people are targeting your Earth Demon Hall." Lin Baohuang's face was livid. Actually, even without Meng Jing saying it, he knew that the Scarlet Drill Demon sect was involved in this, so it was definitely the Hidden Devil sect. Debt collection? What debt? Of course it was the debt from their betrayal of the Kunlun Devil cult. Lin Baohuang looked at Meng Jing and said coldly, "Sir Meng, what do you mean by this? Does the Imperial Court want to burn the bridge after crossing the river? All these years, my Earth Demon Hall has done so many things for the Imperial Court. But now that the Hidden Devil sect has come to our door, you want to get out of it. Such behavior is really disappointing." Meng Jing smiled bitterly. "Sir Lin, don't be agitated. I didn't say that the Imperial Court doesn't care about you. But let's not beat around the bush. Even if the Imperial Court can help you, they won't go all out for your Earth Demon Hall. You know the strength of the Imperial Court. If the Hidden Devil sect, the Phaseless Demon sect, the Scarlet Drill Demon sect, and the former Jadeface Heavenly Demon Wei Shiya make a move, the Imperial Court won't be able to help you. I can only guarantee that under the circumstances of limited ability, the Imperial Court will help you block the revenge of the Hidden Devil sect." Hearing Meng Jing say this, Lin Baohuang's face became a little better. He also knew that the West Chu Imperial Court wouldn't go all out to protect them. Both sides were just mutually beneficial. If the West Chu Imperial Court was willing to go all out against the Hidden Devil sect to protect them, then it would undoubtedly be a loss. So Lin Baohuang immediately made a decision. He would first send people to the moon-worshipping cult, then send people to various places in West Chu. He would recall all the elites and upper echelons of the Earth Demon Hall to Jiang capital before making a decision. The West Chu Imperial Court didn't have any enmity with the Hidden Devil sect, so they wouldn't go all out for the Earth Demon Hall. But the moon-worshipping cult also had enmity with the Hidden Devil sect. They definitely wouldn't sit back and watch the Hidden Devil sect run wild in West Chu. And at this time, after a few days, Xing Situ brought people to the secret intelligence hall disguised as a medicine shop. But when he saw that the hall was empty and even the bloodstains had been cleaned up, Xing Situ turned his head and coldly snorted to a black-clothed middle-aged martial artist with a long blade on his back. "I say, Si Kuang, what the hell are you doing? Didn't you say that this is the secret intelligence hall?" This person was Xing Situ's good friend, Shadow Blade esteemed Si Kuang, but he wasn't a member of the Hidden Devil sect, but a standard demonic rogue cultivator. This person actually had some connections with Chu Xiu. The first martial arts grandmaster to die at Chu Xiu's hands, Xiao Liandong, was his sworn brother. The two of them had roamed together when they were young. Later, Si Kuang wanted to find Chu Xiu for revenge, but at that time, Chu Xiu had already left West Chu and Si Kuang didn't dare to go to the Guanzhong torture room. So the matter was dropped. Hearing Xing Situ's question, Si Kuang said with a face full of grievance, "I used a lot of my connections to find out about this place. The Secret Intelligence Hall is a secret department of the Northern Yan Imperial Court. If it was open and above board, it wouldn't be called the Secret Intelligence Hall. It would be better to call it the Open Intelligence Hall. Maybe the Secret Intelligence Hall moved for some reason and temporarily changed its name. This kind of thing is very normal for the Secret Intelligence Hall. I'll go ask around again." Xing Situ's face was full of dismay, but he could only nod in agreement. However, the others present looked at Xing Situ with a strange look in their eyes. This person didn't seem very reliable. They didn't know how Chu Xiu's team was doing. If they had the upper hand, they wouldn't even be able to drink the soup. What they didn't know was that Chu Xiu not only had the upper hand, but he had also begun to make arrangements and was ready to make his move. Chu Xiu and the others didn't know when the other people from the Earth Demon Hall would arrive, so he had the other martial artists of the Hidden Devil clan spread out in all directions of Jiangdu City. He had them disguise themselves and investigate the situation. Although the strength of this group of people was not too strong, it was only comparable to Chu Xiu. In terms of individual ability, they were the cream of the crop among their peers, so this was no problem for them. Finally, after half a month, the people from the Earth Demon Hall finally gathered and prepared to enter Jiangdu City. Lin Baohuang and Meng Jing were also waiting at the entrance. Meng Jing had come on behalf of the Imperial Court, wanting to see what the Earth Demon Hall had come up with. At this time, a wedding procession suddenly appeared at the city gates. The groom was young and handsome, riding a tall horse. Behind him was a sedan chair. It seemed that after receiving the bride, they were going to leave the city for the wedding. Meng Jing didn't notice at first, but in the next moment he suddenly felt that something was wrong. Chapter 746. Meng Jing was from the capital. Although he was not in Jiangdu City most of the time, he still grew up in Jiangdu City. Jiangdu City was the capital of West Chu, and brides had always been brought in from outside. How could there be a girl from Jiangdu City getting married outside the city? Moreover, the look in the groom's eyes did not seem to be that of a bridegroom, but more like a funeral procession. At this time, riding on the horse, Chu Xiu's expression was calm, and his heart was also calm. Although it was his first time being a groom in both his past and present lives, he was not in the mood to be excited at the thought of killing someone. Mei Qinglian, who was sitting in the sedan chair, was probably full of murderous intent. In fact, at the beginning, Chu Xiu did not intend to make it so complicated. Although in the eyes of outsiders, Chu Xiu was cunning and ruthless, in fact, Chu Xiu preferred simple and direct methods. He only used tricks to save some effort. Originally, Chu Xiu planned to make the move inside the city. However, considering that there were too many West Chu masters in Jiangdu City, it was possible that a large number of West Chu masters would be attracted before they could kill all of them. Therefore, he chose to make the location outside the city. However, the place outside the city could be seen at a glance. Other than some beggars begging at the door, there were only some small merchants and peddlers. It was impossible for Chu Xiu to disguise himself as them and ambush them. In fact, Chu Xiu, Mr. Liu, and the others did not care. It was just killing someone, so what was the difference between disguising themselves? However, Mei Qinglian strongly rejected it. In her words, she was such a beautiful woman. How could they be willing to let her disguise herself as a beggar and a peddler? Therefore, it was her idea to disguise herself as the bride. As for the groom, Shen Xuening was not familiar with her, so she was too embarrassed to be the groom. As for Mr. Liu, he was actually of the same generation as Mei Qinglian. It was just that he broke through the three-flower realm a little later, and looked a little rushed, so he was more suitable to act as Mei Qinglian's father. Hence, Chu Xiu naturally took this position. At the very least, in terms of appearance, he was much better than Mr. Liu and the other demonic Dao cultivators, who were mostly ugly. At this time, the wedding procession had completely left the city. Meng Jing just glanced at them curiously and didn't say anything. The people from the Earth Demon Hall should be entering the city soon. He didn't have the leisure to care about the weddings of ordinary people. However, he had once been an inspector in the Guanzhong torture room, so he had developed an ability to read people. He always felt that there was something strange about this wedding procession. From top to bottom, there was not the slightest sense of joy. Right at this moment, Lin Baohuang suddenly heaved a sigh of relief and said, "They're here." In the distance, there was a group of people riding towards Jiangdu City. There were about 100 of them, and they looked like a caravan. In fact, these people were the elites and higher-ups of the Earth Demon Hall. Because they were afraid that someone from the Hidden Devil clan would launch a sneak attack, they gathered halfway and disguised themselves as a caravan to enter the city. Seeing these people appear, Lin Baohuang could finally breathe a sigh of relief. These days he had been very nervous, afraid that if he was not careful, he would be ambushed and assassinated. The identity of the Hidden Devil clan's Shen Xuening had already been confirmed. With this person's battle record in the pugilistic world, Lin Baohuang had no confidence in winning. Most importantly, Shen Xuening was not the only one who came. According to Meng Jing's analysis, there were at least 4 martial arts grandmasters involved. If he were to be besieged by the 4 of them, he would be in grave danger. Just as Lin Baohuang was about to meet the caravan, the wedding procession also met the caravan head-on. Just as the people from the Earth Demon Hall were about to reprimand them to get out of the way, they saw the groom's figure move. The demonic aura around him soared into the sky, and his hands were like bows and arrows. An invisible primordial spirit arrow condensed and shot out with a loud bang. The soundless whistling sound made people's heads hurt, as if their primordial spirits were vibrating. The expression of the martial arts grandmaster from the Earth Demon Hall at the very front suddenly changed. He was unable to react to this sudden change at all. Only when the soul-destroying arrow arrived in front of him did he let out a furious roar and quickly retreat. A gray cyclone surged in front of him, containing a sliver of the power of his soul. He wanted to kill Chu Xiu's soul-destroying arrow. It was unknown whether Chu Xiu's luck was too good or bad, but the first martial arts grandmaster from the Earth Demon Hall he chose was proficient in primordial spirit defense techniques. Unfortunately, the martial arts grandmaster from the Earth Demon Hall was a little unlucky. His secret technique was enough to defend against most primordial spirit secret techniques, but Chu Xiu's mental strength had already surpassed 90% of martial artists of the same level. The power of the soul-destroying arrow was even more domineering. When the arrow fell, the gray vortex exploded. The martial arts grandmaster immediately let out a muffled groan as blood flowed out of his eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Taking a step forward, the powerful demonic aura around Chu Xiu's body fused with the blood qi. When the punch fell, it seemed like it was going to shatter the mountains and rivers. Everywhere it passed, the earth trembled. Its power was unparalleled. This punch seemed to be the heaven-extinguishing earth-annihilating killing punch, but it also didn't seem to be the heaven-extinguishing earth-annihilating killing punch. When Meng Jing saw Chu Xiu's punch, he couldn't help but spit out a name, Chunqing Di. In the entire West Chu, only Chunqing Di could blast out such a powerful and unparalleled punch. The martial arts grandmaster from the Earth Demon Hall had his mental strength severely injured by Chu Xiu. Although he was in a daze, he was still a martial arts grandmaster who had experienced hundreds of battles. His martial arts instincts were still there. At this critical moment, he formed a seal with his hands and a large amount of demonic aura rose from the ground. It was mixed with an extreme corpse aura, corroding the surrounding heaven-earth yuan qi, and emitting a series of evil whistling sounds. However, under Chu Xiu's punch, regardless of whether it was demonic qi, corpse qi, divine arts or secret techniques, they were all shattered by Chu Xiu's punch, which could be said to be crushing power. The martial arts grandmaster from the Earth Demon Hall spat out a mouthful of blood, and retreated more than 10 steps. With every step he took, a huge pit exploded under his feet. Chu Xiu punched again. The demonic aura around him seemed to form a suit of armor under the support of the 9 heavens fiend golden body. The power was incomparably shocking. With a single punch, the martial arts grandmaster's arms were shattered. When the third punch landed, the martial arts grandmaster from the Earth Demon Hall was surrounded by a mist of blood. He took the initiative to burn his blood essence to fight with Chu Xiu, but under his last punch, he directly exploded into a mist of blood. 3 punches to kill a martial arts grandmaster. This could be said to be the ultimate crushing power. Even though Chu Xiu had launched a sneak attack, it still shocked Meng Jing. At the same time, he also guessed who this person was. The soul-extinguishing arrow had been used countless times by Chu Xiu. Such a signature martial technique, coupled with such terrifying strength, who else could it be but Chu Xiu? At this time, it wasn't that the other people from the Earth Demon Hall didn't want to help, but they had no way to do so. Not long after Chu Xiu made his move, they had already been entangled. This was because Mei Qinglian and the others had already made their move. Mei Qinglian turned into a demonic mist and rose from the bridal sedan chair. Wherever she passed, the great art of the enchantress was displayed to the extreme. Even her opponent almost fell into chi deviation on the spot. Mr. Lu's heavenly demon formless mystic technique was displayed. It was a combination of illusion and reality. It was strange and incomparably domineering, making it difficult for the opponent to grasp it. As for Shen Xuening, his attacks were more like Chu Xiu's. Direct and efficient, ruthless and decisive. His baleful Yin demon sword was almost always stained with blood. In just 3 moves he had nearly pierced a hole in his opponent. If not for the fact that there was another person who caused Shen Xuening to fight 1 against 2, he might have already killed 1 person like Chu Xiu. The other martial artists of the Hidden Devil clan also attacked the other people from the Earth Demon Hall, but their numbers were small, less than a third of the opponents. In addition, because of their own strength, they were not as powerful as Chu Xiu and the others. At this time, Lin Baohuang was stunned by the scene in front of him. He had always thought that with the arrival of the other people from the Earth Demon Hall, he could finally breathe a sigh of relief. He did not expect that this was just the beginning of the massacre. At this time in the crowd, Chu Xiu also saw Lin Baohuang on the other side. The corner of his mouth revealed a cold smile, as he walked towards Lin Baohuang step by step. At the same time, he directly clenched his hand. Wherever he passed, the martial artists of the Earth Demon Hall who were below the unity of heaven and man realm all fell to the ground with pale faces, as if their souls had been sucked out. This was the power of the great soul-searching hand of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth. It was simply a weapon that could not be countered. Lin Baohuang wanted to escape, but the Hidden Devil clan had set up such a big trap to ambush him. How could they let him go so easily? However, Lin Baohuang was puzzled as to why the people from the moon-worshipping cult had not appeared yet. This was Jiangdu City, so there would definitely be people from the moon-worshipping cult stationed here. He had also sent people to the moon-worshipping cult headquarters to ask for help, but there was no news at all. So Lin Baohuang could only look at Meng Jing and shouted, "Sir Meng, what are you waiting for? Quickly send a signal and gather the experts of the West Chu Imperial Hall and the military to kill this group of demon path villains." Meng Jing paused for a moment. He did not directly send the message, but instead asked Chu Xiu, "Official Chu, I know that you have a grudge with the Earth Demon Hall. To be precise, it should be with your entire Hidden Devil clan. But that was only a matter of a few hundred years ago. Isn't it a bit too late for you to take revenge now? Is it worth it to waste so much effort to take revenge for a few generations ago? And this time, Official Chu, you have also killed a lot of people. Your anger should have been vented enough. Then can you stop killing? Otherwise it will be good for everyone's face." Chu Xiu chuckled and said, "Face? Not making a move in your Jiangdu city is already giving face to the imperial court. Right now is the time of the righteous and demonic war. It is best for the imperial court to stay out of the disputes of the Jianghu. Otherwise, it will be implicated and the people will be plunged into misery and suffering. This is something that no one wants to see. Sir, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't interfere in this matter. The Earth Demon Hall is just a watchdog that your West Chu Imperial Court has taken Indiana. If the dog dies, at worst, you can just change it. If it implicates the owner because of a dog, it is not worth it." After spitting out the last sentence, the smile on Chu Xiu's face disappeared and his tone was cold. Chapter 747. Although the underworld and the imperial court were opposed to each other, they were not always hostile. And it was not certain who had the upper hand in terms of high-end power. It was just that Chu Xiu dared to threaten the people of the West Chu imperial court, which was extremely bold. Of course, Chu Xiu was also picking on the weak. If he was facing the Eastern Qi and the Northern Yan imperial court, Chu Xiu wouldn't dare to say so. The strength of the West Chu imperial court was here. They would never be willing to fight with the Yinma clan for an Earth Demon Hall. Before waiting for Meng Jing to reply, Chu Xiu had already made his move. A fist with soaring killing intent and demonic qi fell straight towards Lin Baohuang. Meng Jing, who was beside him, also subconsciously dodged to the side with an angry look on his face. Although he was angry at Chu Xiu's arrogance, he really couldn't make a move. He had already reported the matter of the Earth Demon Hall to the Imperial Court. The Imperial Court's intention was to act according to the circumstances. It was very simple. If the Yinma clan didn't use too much power, then the Imperial Court would help. On the contrary, if the Yinma clan used too much power, then sorry. The West Chu Imperial Court also didn't want to get involved in the personal grievances between the demonic sections. Just when Chu Xiu and others made their move, Xing Situ and others were still searching aimlessly in the city. The spy division was also a secret department of the West Chu Imperial Court. If they could find out so easily, it would be too careless. In addition, Xing Situ and others didn't want to make a move in Jiangdu City, so their speed was even slower. This was also because the martial artists who chose to follow Xing Situ were slightly dissatisfied. Immediately, a middle-aged martial artist who was also at the Real Pellet State complained. "I say, Xing Situ, is your plan reliable? For so many days, we have been wandering in Jiangdu City. When we find them, the war between the righteous and demonic sects will probably be over." Xing Situ snorted coldly. "I didn't ask you to follow me. If you regret joining the other side now, you probably can't even find them." Just as the martial artist was about to fly into a rage, he felt a burst of stellar energy coming from outside the city. That was definitely the fluctuation that could only be caused by the fight between several Real Pellet State martial Dao masters. In an instant, the crowd seemed to have thought of something and turned to look at Xing Situ. "Just now, you said that Chu Xiu was nowhere to be seen, but in the end, Chu Xiu had already set up a trap and made his move." Xing Situ's face reddened slightly, but he immediately shouted, "Don't just stand there. If we don't act now, we won't even get any leftovers." The group of people looked at each other and immediately rushed out of the city. At this time, within the Miaojiang's moon-worshipping cult, a martial Dao grandmaster from the Earth Demon Hall personally brought some people here to ask for help. The Earth Demon Hall now only had 7 martial Dao grandmasters left. This kind of strength was not weak, at least far exceeding most of the top sections. Apart from being unable to compare to the major forces with the true fire spirit refinement realm, the Earth Demon Hall really did not fear the other sections. It's just that compared with their peak, the current Earth Demon Hall was already very weak, and the martial artists of the Earth Demon Hall knew that they must ensure that their strength was not weaker than others. If other sects were weak, they would only slowly decline, but in the process, there might be a chance to turn things around. But the Earth Demon Hall was different. Because their strength was weak, the only outcome waiting for them was death. Therefore, the entire Earth Demon Hall was extremely sensitive to things about the Yinma lineage. After receiving the news, he, the martial Dao Grandmaster, came in person to show his sincerity. Over the years, the Earth Demon Hall had always been respectful to the moon-worshipping cult, and filial piety was indispensable during festivals. And unexpectedly, the one who came to receive him this time turned out to be Donghuang Tai. Since the Battle of Fuyu Mountain, the name of the moon-worshipping cult's Donghuang Tai was known to the world. In the hearts of the people of Jianghu, Donghuang Tai's position was even second to Yi Xiaonan, so at this time, seeing that Donghuang Tai personally came to greet him, the Earth Demon Hall Martial Dao Grandmaster felt a little flattered. "Greetings, Lord Donghuang Tai." The Earth Demon Hall Martial Dao Grandmaster bowed respectfully to Donghuang Tai, then hurriedly said, "Lord, those mad dogs of the Yinma lineage took advantage of the fierce battle between the moon-worshipping cult and the righteous path to slaughter our Earth Demon Hall. Our sect has already lost several elites of the unity of heaven and man realm to the other side. Please give us justice, Lord. Dong Huangtai nodded in understanding and said indifferently, All right, I understand. You can go. The Earth Demon Hall martial artist was stunned. That was it. That was a little too direct and efficient. In the past, the people who received him were the other members of the 9 great divine Magispriests. Most of them would even chat with him, or have some instructions and so on. But this Lord Dong Huangtai was good, sending him away with a single sentence. Then, was the moon-worshipping cult going to interfere in this matter or not? When were they going to make a move? The martial artist wanted to ask these questions, but he didn't dare to. This was also the first time he had come into contact with Dong Huangtai. Only God knew if the other party had such a personality. If he asked too many questions, would he anger him? But just as he was about to leave, pitch-black demonic flames rose from his feet. The demonic flames burned Gangqi and Yuanshen. It had been burning for several breaths of time before the martial artist sensed it. He mobilized all the Gangqi in his body to resist, then turned around and shouted angrily, Why? Just as he finished speaking, the Eastern Emperor Tai Huang formed a seal with one hand, and the demon flame flourished. In an instant, the martial artist was burnt to ashes from head to toe, leaving only his head that fell into the ashes. His eyes were still wide open, as if he had died with grievances. Dong Huangtai clapped his hands, and Hilghost, one of the 9 great divine Magispriests, walked in. He didn't even glance at the corpse on the ground. Pointing at the head on the ground, Dong Huangtai said blandly, Send this to the Hidden Devil clan. Think of it as an extra gift for them. Tell them not to hide it when they attack. Mountain Ghost put away the head on the ground and nodded. He suddenly asked, Your Excellency, the sect leader is not here at such a critical moment. If the people from the righteous sects were to attack us, wouldn't we have no room to resist for a while? Dong Huangtai abruptly raised his head to look at Hilghost. He stared at him until Hilghost started to panic. Just as he was about to open his mouth to ask, an explosion suddenly rang out in the void. Hilghost was sent flying by an invisible slap, and blood immediately flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Dong Huangtai looked at Hilghost with a gloomy gaze and said coldly, Who are you to question the sect leader? What do you know? Only a moon-worshipping cult with a sect leader is the true moon-worshipping cult. The sect leader left precisely because he wanted to attract the peak forces of all the righteous sects to him. If the sect leader stays here, what will happen if a fight breaks out? The thousands of years of foundation of our moon-worshipping cult will be completely destroyed. Look at the current Kunlun mountain. Not even a single tile of the Kunlun devil cult can be found. Dong Huangtai took a step closer to Hilghost's face and said expressionlessly, This time, I'll take it that you've said something wrong and lost your mind. Remember, no matter what, you can never question the sect leader. Otherwise, even if you don't want to take the position of Hilghost, there are plenty of people in the moon-worshipping cult who want to take it. The 9 great divine Magispriests are just a title. Apart from me, it doesn't matter who the other 8 are. With that, Dong Huangtai moved and disappeared from the room, leaving behind Hilghost, who was drenched in cold sweat and still had lingering fears. At this time, he didn't even dare to resent Dong Huangtai, because at that moment, he really felt that Dong Huangtai had killed him. No one knew what was happening in the moon-worshipping cult for the time being. At this time, in Jiangdu, Lin Baohuang couldn't care less about when the moon-worshipping cult would come to save them. At this time, he should be thinking about how to escape from the hands of Chu Xiu. The shadow of a tree, the name of a person. In the past, Chu Xiu appeared as a dark horse among the younger generation in Jianghu. Everyone recognized him because he and Zhang Qingjin were indeed unparalleled among the younger generation. After Chu Xiu killed Fang Jinwu, Chu Xiu's reputation had even surpassed that of Zhang Qingjin. It was enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with those experts who were ranked at the top of the list. Lin Baohuang didn't pay much attention to Chu Xiu. It was only because the other party was a member of the Yinma clan that he subconsciously learned some information about Chu Xiu. He thought that the information was exaggerated enough. Who would have thought that after fighting with him today, he would know that Chu Xiu himself was even more exaggerated than what was described in the information? From his own strength to combat experience to martial arts, and even some of his understanding of martial arts, it was far beyond that of a senior who had been promoted to martial arts grandmaster for decades. Under the fierce attack, Lin Baohuang didn't want to hold on anymore. He just wanted to escape. Only by staying alive could the Earth Demon Hall survive. If he died, it wouldn't take long for the Earth Demon Hall to completely decline by relying on the other good-for-nothing disciples. So when he felt that he couldn't hold on any longer, Lin Baohuang's figure retreated while his hands formed a seal. Yin Qi rose from the ground, turning into a formation that completely enveloped Chu Xiu. A formation also appeared under his feet. His entire body seemed to melt into the soil. His figure completely disappeared, and even his aura was the same. The reason why the Earth Demon Hall was called the Earth Demon Hall was because of the Earth Demon Hall's secret burrowing technique. Burrowing into the ground wasn't as simple as burrowing into the ground with stellar energy. The Earth Demon Hall's burrowing secret technique was fusion. The sky was clear and the earth was turbid. It was like the power of yin and yang, one yin and one yang. The yin qi underground was exuberant and rich. When the Earth Demon Hall's cultivation method was to burrow into the ground and absorb the yin qi and demonic qi underground to cultivate. When in battle, one could also melt into the ground and be silent. It was most suitable for sneak attacks and assassinations. In the past, the Earth Demon Hall was able to sneak attack so many Kunlun Devil cult martial artists. One reason was that they really didn't expect the Earth Demon Hall to betray them. The second reason was because the Earth Demon Hall's burrowing secret technique was indeed outstanding in sneak attacks. Chapter 748. When the Earth Demon Hall was at its peak, it was the Kunlun Devil cult's main hall of assassinations. Now, although it had reached the point where it had to use its special skills to escape, and although it was a little embarrassing, at least it had the hope of staying alive. Unfortunately, this hope didn't last long before it was completely extinguished by Chu Xiu. Looking at the ground where there was no aura coming from, Chu Xiu sneered. It had to be said that the Earth Demon Hall's tunneling technique was indeed very mystical. Even with Chu Xiu's mental strength, he was unable to detect even the slightest bit of aura. It was as if the entire region was concealing Lin Baohuang. But it didn't matter if he couldn't find it. When power reached a certain level, it was enough to crush everything. Chu Xiu formed a Buddhist seal with his hand and used the sun-changing technique. The shadow of Vairocana bloomed behind him, and all the power in his body turned into golden Buddha's light, illuminating the area. Vairocana's palm fell, instantly shattering the ground. The golden Buddha's light also surged into the ground. After more than 10 palm strikes, the ground was a mess, and cracks were everywhere. But at this time, Chu Xiu suddenly discovered that the Buddha's light in one place was being melted by power. The corner of his mouth immediately curled into a cold smile. Found it. Mahavairocana's silhouette did not strike out with his palm. Instead, he formed a Buddhist seal with his hand and unleashed the colorless fixing palm mudra. The power began to distort and the land in that area began to churn. In the end, a figure wrapped in demonic qi was forcibly pulled out and slammed into the ground, coughing up blood. The power of the primordial spirit condensed into arrows, and the soul-destroying arrows shot out as if they were free. No matter how Lin Baohuang tried to block them, there was still a part of his mental strength that exploded in his mind, causing him to bleed from his orifices. His aura was extremely weak. Taking a step forward, Chu Xiu quickly rushed toward Lin Baohuang, ready to finish him off once and for all. But at this moment, a black and a red demon sword suddenly flew over from afar and slashed at Lin Baohuang. Chu Xiu snorted coldly and changed the direction of his fist, sending the two demon swords flying. However, the baleful Yin demon qi on the two demon swords was not dispersed. They slashed into Lin Baohuang's body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. However, he did not die. Xing Situ roared. Chu Xiu, what are you doing? Don't tell me you want to protect the life of this traitor of the demonic path? Chu Xiu did not answer him. Instead, he reached out with a single hand, and a pressure from his soul erupted. He used the full power of the soul-searching hand of apocalypse and earth-destroying. Lin Baohuang let out a pained howl, but he failed to stop the power in the end. All of his soul was directly extracted by Chu Xiu, and his face immediately paled. He collapsed to the ground, no longer breathing. In fact, Chu Xiu's soul-searching hand of apocalypse and earth-destroying didn't have much effect on martial arts grandmasters. It couldn't kill them, but it could only harass them. Although Lin Baohuang was tenacious enough, he was first hit by Chu Xiu's sun-changing art. Then his soul was severely injured by the soul-destroying arrow. And then he was severely injured by the baleful Yin demon Qi on Xing Situ's 9 Yin and Red Abyss demon swords. He was already an arrow at the end of its flight, so he could not resist Chu Xiu's soul-searching hand. Looking at the exasperated Xing Situ, Chu Xiu said lightly, "Nothing much. We definitely have to kill him, but we also have to see who gets to do it. We've spent so much effort to find someone to set up a trap and assassinate him. But you, Xing Situ, want to take advantage of us? How can there be such a good thing in the world?" At this time, Shen Xuening and the others had also finished off their opponents from the Earth Demon Hall. The martial arts grandmasters sent by the Yinma clan were all experts among experts, and almost none of them were nobodies. Their strength was already a notch higher than that of the Earth Demon Hall, so it wasn't difficult for them to finish off their opponents now that they had gone all out. Seeing Xing Situ and the others arrive, Chu Xiu's people also gathered around them, faintly confronting them. The smell of gunpowder was thick between the two sides. Meng Jing, who hadn't made a move all this time, only standing at the city gate and watching the battle, was now nervous. What the hell were these guys from the Yinma clan doing? Why did it seem like they were fighting each other? It didn't matter if they fought among themselves, but they couldn't let the imperial court get involved. At this time, Xing Situ's people were also looking at the corpses of the Earth Demon Hall martial artists on the ground, a trace of confusion in their eyes. This time, it was clear that the old ancestors of the Hidden Devil clan were here to give them benefits. Although the Earth Demon Hall wasn't weak, without the protection of the moon-worshipping cult, any one of the ancestors from the Yinma clan at the true fire spirit refinement realm would be able to slaughter them all. The reason they were sent here was actually to give them some benefits for free. But now, Xing Situ and his people acted as if they were on vacation. They'd been here for nearly a month, wandering around Jiangdu City, without so much as a hair on their heads. Finally, they heard some movement, but in the end, Chu Xiu's side had already taken care of them. How could they be satisfied with this? At the same time, Chu Xiu's people were also looking at the opposite side with vigilance. During this period of time, they'd gone through a lot of effort to find a trap, ambush, and kill. Only then did they get rid of all the traitors of the Earth Demon Hall. You didn't do anything, and you want a share of the spoils? What right do you have? Xing Sita glanced at the people around him and suddenly sneered. Chu Xiu, do you want to take all the spoils for yourself? Among the people present, no one had gained anything. How could they be willing to leave just like that? Don't worry about scarcity, but worry about inequality. This was the mentality of all people. They didn't care how much you'd paid. Why did you get all the benefits while I didn't? Mr. Liu pulled Chu Xiu's arm and secretly transmitted his voice to him. Calm down. It's not good for you to fight with this guy here. He's just a rogue cultivator with no family business foundation. It's fine if he falls out. If you fight, it's equivalent to offending a lot of the Hidden Devil clan's branches. It's not good for you. Mr. Liu knew Chu Xiu's character. He was afraid that if he went crazy, there would be another internal strife in the Hidden Devil clan. That would not only be a joke, but it would also affect Chu Xiu's reputation in the Hidden Devil clan. Offending Yuan Tianfang was not a big deal, but offending more than half of the Hidden Devil clan's branches was a big deal. Although with Wei Shi's protection, he wouldn't let the other big shots of the Hidden Devil clan attack Chu Xiu. But in the future, Chu Xiu would face a lot of trouble. That was what Xing Situ was thinking. If Chu Xiu refused to take a share, he would not only offend him, but also offend all the warriors of the Hidden Devil clan on his side. If Chu Xiu agreed, he wouldn't get any benefits either. The people on his side would definitely blame Chu Xiu for handing over the benefits that he had already obtained. Unless Chu Xiu was willing to take nothing, then the interests of both sides could be appeased. But if that happened, he would be the one to suffer losses. So it was a dilemma. Looking at Xing Situ, Chu Xiu suddenly smiled and said, Chu Xiu, have never had the habit of eating alone. If you are willing to follow me, I've said that as long as you are obedient, you will get benefits. Unfortunately, you didn't choose me." As soon as he said this, everyone present regretted it. If they had known that Xing Situ was so unreliable, they would have chosen Chu Xiu. Although Chu Xiu was famous in the Jianghu, Xing Situ's foundation in the Hidden Devil clan was deeper than Chu Xiu's, and he had a lot of connections. Moreover, Chu Xiu was too young. How could the warriors of the previous generation trust Chu Xiu so easily? Of course they would choose the more reliable Xing Situ, but who would have thought that Xing Situ was not as reliable as they thought? But at this time, Chu Xiu changed the topic and said, "But some things have to be given a chance. I, Chu Xiu, am not an unreasonable person." As he said this, Chu Xiu directly took out the jade seal that Qi Yuanli had given him and said, "This records all of the Secret Intelligence Division's branches in West Chu. The information was given to me by Wind Sweeping Building, so it can't be wrong. Right now, the Earth Demon Division's high-level elites have all been killed by me, and the others left behind in the divisions are not worth a single blow. As long as you are willing to make a trip, you will be able to easily deal with them and obtain the remaining items in the divisions." As soon as they heard this, everyone's eyes lit up. For those on Xing Situ's side, although they knew that the real good things were in the hands of Lin Baohuang and the other high-level members of the Earth Demon Division, it was impossible for them to bring everything with them. There were definitely many good things in the divisions, so it wasn't a loss for them to take those. As for those on Chu Xiu's side, it was enough for them to obtain the immediate benefits. If they wanted to obtain the other things in the divisions, they would have to make another trip. The most important thing was that the information belonged to Chu Xiu, so he could give it to whoever he wanted. As long as their own interests weren't at stake, they didn't care too much. Xing Situ's face darkened. He didn't think that Chu Xiu would be able to solve the situation with such a simple trick. But at this time, Chu Xiu suddenly said, "Any one of you can take this, but the condition is that you cannot give it to Xing Situ. Otherwise, I don't mind taking people to rob it again." Xing Situ's face darkened, but the martial Dao grandmasters around him looked at each other and walked out. They took the jade seal one by one, memorized the information, and turned to leave. Others might have some misgivings about Xing Situ, but they didn't. They were all senior members of the Yinma clan. They were either backed by true fire masters of the spiritual refinement realm, or like Mei Qinglian, came from a powerful branch of the Yinma clan in the past. They had a strong background and status, so they didn't have to be afraid of him. Seeing this, the other martial artists who had not reached the martial Dao Grandmaster realm also walked out. In a short while, Xing Situ was alone except for his good friend, Si Kuang, Ying Dao Exalted Master. In fact, Si Kuang also wanted it, but he wasn't a member of the Yinma clan. If he wanted it, Chu Xiu wouldn't give it to him, and the others wouldn't agree either. Xing Situ looked at Chu Xiu with a gloomy face, but in the end, he didn't say a word. He just turned around and left. Looking at the strength of both sides, he knew that he couldn't beat them. Even if he left any more harsh words, it would just be a joke. He might as well just leave. Chapter 749. Xing Situ left angrily. It was time for Chu Xiu and the others to split the loot. Of course, Chu Xiu and the others still had some sense of propriety. They did not search the corpse in front of Meng Jing. That would be too disrespectful to the West Chu Imperial Court. They directly moved the corpse to a place outside the city, and then began to rummage through it. The treasures that those fellows obtained from the Kunlun demon sect back then should have been brought along with them. However, no one knew how many of them were left. These things were given to the moon-worshipping cult by the Earth Demon Hall. Over the years, they must have consumed a lot of them. What was left were either useless or temporarily unusable, but they were definitely treasures. Chu Xiu and the others would naturally be responsible for dividing the items on the bodies of the martial Dao grandmasters. As for the items on the other Earth Demon Hall martial artists, they would be divided by the other Hidden Devil clan martial artists. There were a total of 6 people, and there were quite a lot of things found on them. There was the Earth Demon Hall's own secret technique, the Earth Escape technique, and other cultivation techniques passed down from the Kunlun Devil cult. There were also some rare materials, pills, and even weapons. It was a broken sword. Although it looked very ordinary, not even a divine weapon, it was a broken sword. Of course, it might have been a divine weapon before, but it was not now. But the broken sword exuded an extremely fierce aura. Even when it was placed on the ground, a layer of frost formed and the vegetation withered. Shen Xuaning's eyes lit up. I want this sword. Does anyone have any objections? The people present did not use swords, so of course they had no objections. Chu Xiu did not speak at this time. He just stared at one thing. It was a very strange thing. It was round, scarlet, and there was no aura on it. It looked like an ordinary gem. But this thing was found on Lin Baohuang's body, and the secret box that contained it was made of extremely precious deep-sea black iron. The array on it had been resealed to protect this thing. What Chu Xiu really cared about was the feeling. The moment he saw it, Chu Xiu's heart was filled with desire. He wanted this thing. Therefore, Chu Xiu directly said, I want this thing. The people present all looked at Chu Xiu in surprise. Obviously, they also did not recognize what it was. Of course, at this time, no one would fight with Chu Xiu. If they didn't recognize the treasure, it would be their own fault. They couldn't blame Chu Xiu for being too smart. After distributing the items, everyone planned to go back first, but they happened to run into Chu Wuji, who was halfway there. You don't need to rush back for now. Old Wei and the others are rushing over to West Chu. Chu Xiu's expression froze as he asked, Are the righteous sects ready to take action? Chu Wuji nodded and said, Yi Xiaonan is refining a demon weapon on the broken intestine cliff at the edge of the 100,000 mountains. It is said that this is a weapon embryo left behind by the ancestors of the moon-worshipping cult. Once it is completed, it will be comparable to the complete version of the Kunlun devil cult's 3 great demon weapons. Yi Xiaonan has already done this brazenly. Do you think the others can still sit still? The battle is about to start. We need to make preparations. It doesn't matter if the moon-worshipping cult can't win this battle. We just need to make sure they don't lose too badly. Chu Wuji said this. In fact, the key to this battle was not them, but rather the broken intestine cliff and Yi Xiaonan. If Yi Xiaonan won, the moon-worshipping cult would win. If Yi Xiaonan lost, the moon-worshipping cult would also lose. Hearing Chu Wuji's words, Chu Xiu was very interested in Yi Xiaonan's battle. This was a powerhouse ranked on the sovereign list. To be able to see a powerhouse of this level in action, it could be said to be a rare opportunity. It was a pity that even if Chu Xiu rushed to watch the show, he couldn't, because watching this kind of show would kill him. In the eyes of ordinary martial artists, the cultivation of the true pellet state was already the peak. It was a grandmaster-level character who could establish a sect. But in the eyes of a powerhouse like Yi Xiaonan, who had reached the heaven and earth mysterious realm, he was no different from an ant. The heaven and earth mysterious realm, dancing in the air, was already like an immortal god. There were no real immortals or Buddhas in this world. The powerhouses of the heaven and earth mysterious realm were the gods and Buddhas of this world. Watching the battle of powerhouses of this level, a single shockwave could easily kill someone. Back to a few days ago, in the Great Light Temple, Su Du was holding his wine gourd, sipping it. This time, his wine gourd was really filled with water, not wine. At this time, Su Du really wasn't in the mood to drink. The righteous and demonic war was about to break out. He also wanted to go to West Chu, but unfortunately, someone had to stay in the Great Light Temple. Just like the restless Chu Xiu, if he wasn't there and no one in the Great Light Temple could control him, he could overturn the sky of the northern Yanjianghu. At this moment, in the central courtyard of the Great Light Temple, a beam of Buddha's light shot into the sky. In an instant, the golden Buddha's light dyed the originally gloomy sky gold and jade. The sound of Buddha's chanting fell from mid-air, as if Buddha had descended. In mid-air, the clouds that were dyed gold actually began to surge. In the end, they actually gathered into a giant Buddha that was tens of thousands of feet tall. It hovered in mid-air with a dignified appearance, overlooking the world. Su Du's wine gourd fell to the ground, but he didn't seem to notice it. He looked at the sky in disbelief and mumbled, "Senior Abbot, you've broken through?" All this time, the most famous of the high-level martial artists in the Great Light Temple had always been the first seat of raging thought Zen Hall, Su Yun. Among the martial artists of the Su generation, Su Yun's talent was also the highest and the most stunning. It was even publicly acknowledged in the Jianghu that Su Yun's strength was unfathomable. Among martial artists of the same level, no one could force Su Yun to use his full strength. Compared to Su Yun, Su Xiai, the abbot, seemed to have no sense of existence. Even the entire Jianghu did not know why the previous abbot had chosen Su Xiai to be the abbot, and Su Yun had not fought for the position. Over the years, many people said that Su Xiai did not live up to his title as abbot, and was inferior to Su Yun. In the face of these rumors, Su Xiai had never been angry. It was just that he spent most of his time cultivating in seclusion. However, in the eyes of others, he was purely running away, afraid that someone would compare him to Su Yun. However, only people like Su Du, who were close to Su Xiai, knew that Su Xiai was not inferior to anyone else. Looking at Su Xi's appearance and feeling his power, how could Su Du not know that Su Xiai had already stepped into the heaven and earth elemental realm? He was strong enough to be ranked on the Jianghu Supreme ranking. As long as Su Xiai walked out of the Great Light Temple with this strength, all the rumors would be destroyed. Su Xiai truly deserved the position of abbot. The next moment, the golden Buddhist light dissipated, and the shocking Buddha also disappeared. An old monk wearing a red robe suddenly appeared in front of Su Du. He squinted his eyes, and had a benevolent look on his face. "Junior brother Su Du, you've been secretly drinking again." Su Du seemed to be shocked and quickly said, "I really didn't drink this time. Senior brother abbot, look, this is water, okay?" Su Xiai shook his head and said, "There's wine in your heart, so whatever you drink is wine. You've still broken the precepts." Su Du's face darkened, and he said speechlessly, "Senior brother abbot, why are you still playing games with me at this time? You've already stepped into the heaven and earth elemental realm?" Although Su Du already had a guess, he still had to wait for Su Xiai to say it himself before he could rest assured. Su Xiai nodded and said, "I've stepped into it. This realm is like a door. If you push it open, you can enter. If you can't push it open, and you forcefully smash the door, it will be locked even tighter." Su Du looked at Su Xiai speechlessly. Senior brother abbot was still so strange after breaking through. Couldn't he say something easy to understand? "How's the moon-worshipping cult?" Su Xiai asked. Although he was in seclusion, there were disciples reporting the situation outside his meditation room every day. Therefore, Su Xiai had always been in control of the overall situation. Su Du thought about it and said, "There seems to be news that Yi Xiaonan left the moon-worshipping cult and went to Heartbroken Cliff to forge a demonic weapon. It's said that this demonic weapon is a weapon embryo left behind by the founding ancestor of the moon-worshipping cult. It's abnormally powerful. Many generations of moon-worshipping cult leaders have tried to successfully forge it, but they all failed. However, once it succeeds, its power will be comparable to the 3 demonic weapons of the Kunlun devil cult. Speaking of which, this Yi Xiaonan is quite interesting. He changed places to forge a weapon. The moon-worshipping cult is so big. Can't it accommodate him?" Su Xiai looked into the distance and said lightly, "Yi Xiaonan is waiting for us. We haven't seen each other for so long. Has he really become so strong that he can go further than us in the sect?" Su Du was just about to ask what he meant when he saw Su Xiai take a step forward. His figure was already in the air. He turned into a golden light and flew far away. Almost in an instant he disappeared. Strictly speaking, flying in the air was something that only heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm cultivators could do. Martial Dao grandmasters could not fly in the air. It could only be said that they could jump higher and stay longer. Although true fire spiritual refinement realm cultivators could do it, they could not last long. True fire spiritual refinement realm cultivators use their own powerful gang qi to link with the surrounding qi of heaven and earth to achieve the effect of flying in the air. What was consumed was still their own strength. However, they were rich and could afford to consume it. Only when one reached the heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm, and comprehended the heavenly way with martial arts, would they become a part of the world. They could forcibly use their own strength to change the rules of the world around them, and let the power of heaven and earth drag them to fly. This was true flying in the air. Su Du watched Su Si fly away in a daze. Only then did he react. He quickly shouted, "Senior brother, wait for me. Take me with you." The scale of the battle between the righteous and demonic sects on Mt Fuyu was simply too small. This was the biggest battle between the righteous and demonic sects ever since the Kunlun demon sect was annihilated. The scene would definitely be exhilarating, and Su Du naturally wanted to take a look at it. However, at this time, it was unknown whether Su Si heard him or not. Anyway, the speed of a heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm cultivator was extremely terrifying. Almost in the blink of an eye, he had disappeared, leaving behind a dumbfounded Su Du. It was fine that Su Yin did not bring him. But Su Si did not bring him either. In the end, he still ended up as a guard. Chapter 750. As soon as Yi Xiaonan made his move, the wind and clouds in Jianghu also surged. Within the eastern Qishang Rivering clan, in the deepest part of a loft, there was not a single window, and not a single ray of light could be seen within the loft. However, at this moment, the door of the pavilion suddenly opened, and an incomparably dignified aura was released, as if a sleeping dragon had opened its eyes. An old man wearing a robe embroidered with black dragons walked out. His silver hair was neatly combed, and he stood with his hands clasped behind his back. The domineering aura he exuded was even stronger than that of the current hero, the northern Yan Xianglong. In front of him, a middle-aged man wearing the same clothes stood there. He also had a solemn expression, and didn't have the slightest smile on his face. It was as if he was carved from the same mold as the ancestor. "Ancestor, are you going to take action this time? Actually, my Shangshuaying clan shouldn't have gotten involved in this matter," the old man said indifferently. "San Shu, you have to remember, there is nothing in this world that should or should not, only whether you want to do it or not. Righteous and demonic Tao. It's nothing more than a conflict of interests. It's all empty talk about getting rid of demons and defending the Tao. The moon-worshipping cult hasn't started to wreak havoc in Jianghu yet. Then why did you make a move?" The old man gazed at the sky with a sharp glint in his eyes. 500 years ago, the Kunlun devil cult suppressed the world. The world only knew the name of Dugu Weiwei. After that, Ning Xuanji appeared out of nowhere, and the world only remembered his name as an immortal. But who knew how many heroes and outstanding geniuses had arisen in those chaotic times? It is a blessing not to be born in the same era as them, but it is also a pity. At this point the old man paused and said, "Sen Shu, I am old." Although the old man said that he was old, his figure was tall and straight, and his aura was strong. The sharpness in his eyes was even stronger than that of a young man. There was no sign of age at all. "For the sake of Ying clan, I've been trapped in the Black Tower for 50 years. I'm afraid that the people of Jiang who have already forgotten my name. The next generation of the Ying family depends on you. But I don't want to die of old age in my bed. 500 years ago, I didn't manage to catch up with the rising heroes and the turbulent times, but this time, I don't want to miss it." Yi Xiaonan of moon-worshipping cult was the #1 demonic cultivator in the world after Dugu Weiwei. If I don't meet such a person, wouldn't I have wasted my time in this world? With that, the old man's figure turned into a black light and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The middle-aged man shook his head gently as he watched the old man leave, but he didn't say anything. Meanwhile, in the real martial arts sect of Eastern Qi, in the True Force Hall, dozens of Taoist priests were sitting cross-legged. There were old Taoist priests, middle-aged Taoist priests, and a few young Taoist priests. The hall was filled with incense, like mist, and the atmosphere was extremely heavy. At the forefront, an old Taoist priest wearing a gray Tai Chi Taoist robe sighed and said, "The tree may desire peace, but the wind will not stop." Yi Xiaonan brazenly sacrificed a demonic weapon outside. "He's forcing us to take action." Someone below advised, "Leader, in the past, when the Kunlun devil cult suppressed the world, it was our martial arts sect's patriarch Ning Xuanji who turned the tide. Since the patriarch disappeared, our real martial arts sect has been declining and has never recovered to its peak. Now that there's a problem, does our real martial arts sect have to sacrifice again? Leader, that Yi Xiaonan has already stepped into the heaven and earth mysterious realm. After mastering the Mend Heaven Heart Sutra, his strength is unfathomable. Even the old Taoist master and Subodhi Monastery's divine monk Rama were defeated by him. I'm not boosting the morale of others and diminishing our own. But if something happens to you, our real martial arts sect will suffer another blow. This old Taoist priest was the current leader of the real martial arts sect, Sage Xianchen Lu Chonglu. Since Ning Xuanji's death, there hadn't been any outstanding figures in the real martial arts sect, including Lu Chonglu. Although he was ranked 6th on the Fengyan list, he had fought his way to this position step by step. There was nothing legendary about his achievements in his life. The only thing worth mentioning about him was that the other disciples of the real martial arts sect were accepted into the sect to cultivate when they were young. He was the only one who started practicing martial arts in his 20s. Lu Chonglu was just an ordinary scholar before he was in his 20s. However, he liked Taoism and was a devotee of the real martial arts sect. Because he was trapped by love, he entered the outer sect of the real martial arts sect in a rage and started practicing Taoism. The outer sect of the real martial arts sect only practiced Taoism and didn't practice martial arts. They trained ordinary Taoist priests. However, Lu Chongliu's understanding of Taoist scriptures alarmed the big shots in the inner sect of the real martial arts sect. Therefore, they made an exception and promoted him to an inner sect disciple. They started teaching him martial arts. However, Lu Chonglu didn't amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Instead, he walked step by step to his current position. He wasn't on the Longhu list when he was young, and he wasn't on the Fengyan list when he was middle-aged. Lu Chonglu only became the leader when he had entered the real fire spiritual refinement realm. Moreover, the previous leader and the older generation of martial artists had died. At that time, he had already become an old Taoist priest. His 6th position on the Fengyan list was not only because he had the strength of the real fire spiritual refinement realm, but also because he was the leader of the real martial arts sect. Sitting on this position meant that he had the strength to stir up a storm in the martial world. Most of the martial artists of the real martial arts sect present didn't want Lu Chonglu to fight. The real martial arts sect had already fought once. Now the real martial arts sect didn't have the strongest martial artist on the supreme list. Even if the sky collapsed, there would be someone stronger to support it. The real martial arts sect used to be the strongest 500 years ago. However, it was no longer their turn now. Lu Chonglu sighed and said, when the patriarch was still alive, he didn't know if he could defeat Dugu Weiwei. However, he still went. Today, the real martial arts sect didn't have the confidence and retreated. The other sects also felt that they didn't have the confidence and retreated as well. After retreating, there's really no one left. Even if the sky collapsed, there would be someone stronger to support it. However, if the taller people chose to lower their heads, it would be useless no matter how tall they were. This time, the real martial arts sect must go. If we retreat, there will be loopholes in our hearts, and we will lose face for the patriarch. You don't have to persuade me anymore. No matter what, I have to go. I will take the horsetail whisk left by the patriarch. Don't worry, I haven't lived long enough. I won't die. Although the Celestial Master Mansion had replaced the real martial arts sect as the leader of the Dao sects, the real martial arts sect still had a lot of heritage. The horsetail whisk that Lu Chonglu mentioned was left behind by Ning Xuanji in the past. There was a martial Dao imprint unique to Ning Xuanji on it. This horsetail whisk wasn't a divine weapon. The weapon spirit in it had dissipated after Ning Xuanji disappeared. However, as long as the martial Dao imprint in it worked, its power would be stronger than a divine weapon. Seeing that Lu Chonglu had made up his mind, everyone present shook their heads and stopped trying to persuade him. Lu Chonglu was a gentle person. He wasn't too aggressive when dealing with the real martial arts sect's affairs. However, everyone present knew that once Lu Chonglu made a decision, no one could stop him no matter how hard they tried to persuade him. When Lu Chonglu made his decision, the Sword King city in the extreme west, which was opposite the real martial arts sect, also made a decision. However, unlike the real martial arts sect's reluctance, the Sword King city took the initiative to make a move. At the moment, in the Sword King city's main hall, the 3 true fire spirit refinement stage powerhouses of the Sword King city were all present. One of them was the Jiannan King, Duguli, who had fought in the Righteous Path and Devil Path battle on Floating Jade Mountain. There was also a middle-aged man with an extraordinary aura. He was the city lord of the Sword King city. He was ranked 4th on the reputation list, Heavenly King Shen, the Heavenly Sword. It was said that Heavenly King Shen's previous name was Shen Tian. After he became the city lord of the Sword King city, people called him the Heavenly King Shen Tian. However, no one knew what he was called in the end. In the end, he was called Heavenly King Shen. However, it seemed more imposing this way, so Heavenly King Shen didn't mind. Instead, it became his name. The last person was a middle-aged man in black with a cold expression. The strangest thing was that his eyes were pitch black, and his body was emitting traces of death. He didn't look like a Righteous Path martial artist. Instead, he looked like a diabolism martial artist. This person wasn't famous in the pugilistic world. However, more than 20 years ago, he was a famous Sword King city expert. He was the previous hall master of the Form Sword Hall. His name was Meng Yanghe. Back then, Meng Yanghe was already ranked 30th on the reputation list. It wasn't too high, but it was definitely not low either. He was also considered the most outstanding disciple of the Sword King city's generation. He was also the martial artist who had the highest chance of entering the true fire spirit refinement stage. In the end, more than 20 years ago, Meng Yanghe suddenly disappeared without a trace. He passed the position of Hall Master to Bai Qian, who had just reached the Martial Dao Grandmaster realm, and hadn't even stabilized his cultivation. After not showing his face for more than 20 years, his name had long been removed from the reputation list. Everyone suspected that something had happened to Meng Yanghe. In reality, that was indeed the case. More than 20 years ago, Meng Yanghe accidentally found a sword that was born in the land of extreme Yin. He wanted to refine it, but something went wrong. It caused him to be trapped in the boundless Yin demonic qi, and unable to escape. Even with Heavenly King Shen and Duguli's help, he couldn't do it. In these 20-plus years, Meng Yanghe had exhausted all of his strength to refine the extreme Yin sword, but his body had also been invaded by the extreme Yin demonic qi, becoming neither human nor ghost. Although he had reached the true fire spirit refinement realm, only he knew exactly how much he had paid for it. Heavenly King Shen looked in the direction of West Chu and said in a low voice, "Yi Xiaonan is so courageous and charismatic. He has set up such a large force and treats all the powerhouses of the pugilistic world as nothing. How can the Sword King city be absent?" Duguli frowned and said, "Yi Xiaonan is very terrifying. You've seen the power of the heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm. He's not that easy to deal with." Heavenly King Shen said in a low voice, "Of course I know that a powerhouse of the heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm is not easy to deal with. I also don't expect that we alone can defeat Yi Xiaonan. Yanghe, now that you've refined the sword of extreme Yin and stepped into the true fire spirit refinement stage, you can join forces with Martial Uncle Dugu and me. With the three of us driving the Human King sword together, even if it's a powerhouse of the heaven and earth elemental enlightenment realm, we still have the power to fight. It's about time that the head of the 5 major sword sects was decided." Chapter 751. The Human King sword that Heavenly King Shen was talking about was the sword of a human king in ancient times. It should be said that it wasn't ancient times, but the ancient times of the ancient times. When the human race was still a tribe, a human king had forged a sword with the power of heaven and earth. It contained infinite power. Even the name of Sword King City was related to this human king sword. Unfortunately, the human king sword was broken. However, even if it was broken, only the founder of Sword King City could wield it. It was said that the founder of Sword King City was a descendant of the human king of the past. With the latter's bloodline, he could wield the human king sword. Now that Heavenly King Shen wanted to use the human king sword, he could only gather the power of 3 true fire cultivators at the soul refinement stage and forcefully use it. The human king sword was the root of Sword King City. It had only been used a few times in the past thousands of years. Every time, it was activated by blood sacrifice when Sword King City was in danger. Moreover, after so many years, the human king sword had never left Sword King City, except for the founder. This time, Sword King City was actually prepared to use the Human King sword to deal with Yi Xiaonan. One could imagine how much courage Heavenly King Xin had put into making this decision. In just a few days, from northern Yan to eastern Qi, and then to West Chu, the entire pugilistic world had been stirred up by Yi Xiaonan alone. Now even those who didn't care about the situation in the pugilistic world could feel a sense of urgency, as if a storm was brewing. West Chu 100,000 Mountains, Broken Heart Cliff. Although this place was called Broken Heart Cliff, the scenery was beautiful. It made people feel relaxed and happy. There was no feeling of heartbreak. In fact, Broken Heart Cliff came from a poignant love story. In short, it was all kinds of heart-wrenching things. After hearing about it, people would cry that the heavens were unfair. In the legend, after the hero and heroine died, Broken Heart Cliff was covered in broken heart grass. This was a kind of beautiful but poisonous plant. It was one of the main feeding materials of moon-worshipping sects Broken Heart Gu. At that moment, Yi Xiaonan stood on Broken Heart Cliff with his hands behind his back. His eyes seemed to have the vicissitudes of the sun, moon, and stars rising and rotating. There was a complicated array formation beside him, burning with scorching demonic flames. Amidst the devilish flames, a strange weapon was being refined and slowly rotating. It was strange because it wasn't an ordinary sword, but something that looked like a crescent moon. One side of it was sharp, and it didn't have a handle. There were strange patterns all over it, beautiful and mysterious. Yi Xiaonan was waiting. He didn't know who he was waiting for, but he knew that those who should come would come. At this time, on a cliff more than 10 miles away from the Broken Heart Cliff, a middle-aged man wearing a gorgeous robe was nervously moving the array plate in front of him. The entire Broken Heart Cliff was displayed above the array plate. Behind the middle-aged man was Qi Yuanli and some other martial artists from Wind Sweeping Tower. They were all holding large amounts of origin stones, spirit crystals, and other items that contained Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi. They were all prepared to fill the array formation at any time. This ugly and inconspicuous middle-aged man was the current tower master of Wind Sweeping Tower. 100 Daybreak, Fong Fifan. Wind Sweeping Tower was familiar with the secrets of the martial world, but Fong Fifan was very mysterious. Usually, he didn't even leave Wind Sweeping Tower, and was only responsible for organizing some information in the tower. However, he could control the world's wind media, and was equivalent to Wind Sweeping Tower's brain. However, the matter this time was too big. So big that even Wind Sweeping Tower's anemophilia didn't dare to approach. Even martial arts grandmasters like Fong Fifan and Qi Yuanli wouldn't be able to last long in a battle of this level. The aftermath would be enough to send them on their way. However, Wind Sweeping Tower didn't want to miss this battle. Therefore, they could only use secret techniques and consume large amounts of heavenly and earthly treasures to watch this battle from more than 10 miles away. At this time, Qi Yuanli suddenly couldn't help but exclaim, "It's here!" Everyone looked at the projection, and saw a Buddhist light descending in midair. The abbot of Great Light Temple, Su Ci, descended from the sky with lotuses under his feet. The Buddhist light around him was extremely holy. With a sigh, Su Ci said, "The lesson of the Kunlun devil cult is right before our eyes. Yi Xiaonan, why do you want to walk the same path as Dugu Weiwei?" "The same path? Why can Dugu Weiwei walk some paths but I can't?" Yi Xiaonan looked at Su Ci and said calmly, "What really surprised me is you. Everyone says that you're not as good as Su Yun. Now, you've proven to the entire martial world that the previous abbot didn't choose the wrong person. You're half a step faster than Su Yun." Su Ci shook his head and said, "The people are foolish, but this penniless monk can't be foolish like them. This penniless monk doesn't need to prove anything to the world. I am who I am. Why should I be inferior to others, and why should I be stronger than others?" That's right. The people are foolish. If the words of an ant were to be taken seriously, then that would be called foolish. The black dragon's roar resounded through the world. The Ying family's patriarch descended. His back was straight like the back of a dragon. Every move he made was like a dragon or a tiger, and his aura was extraordinary. The other disciples of Wind Sweeping Tower were dumbfounded. Who was this person? Looking at his cultivation technique, he should be from the Shangshui Ying clan. But when did the Shangshuaying clan have such a powerhouse? Fang Fifan squinted his small eyes and said, "You brats really have a bad memory. More than 50 years ago, the old patriarch of the Shangshuaying clan, Dragon King Yingxi, spread the news of the patriarch's position in a low-key manner. After that, he went silent. Everyone thought he was dead. Now, it seems that he quietly crossed the Dragon's Gate and became the true Dragon King. This Ying family's old Dragon King used to have a fiery temper. Back then, I didn't believe that he would choose to die in a low-key manner. Now, it looks like I'm right." The disciples of Wind-Sweeping Tower looked at each other and revealed helpless expressions. It happened more than 50 years ago. He wasn't even born at that time. There was so much information about the Jianghu in the world. As an anemophilia, even Qi Yuanli couldn't remember all the information about the current Jianghu, let alone things that happened decades ago. One of the reasons why Fang Fifan was able to become the Tower Master of Wind-Sweeping Tower was that he could really remember any information he saw. He had a photographic memory and a permanent memory. That was why he was able to become the Tower Master. Yingxi took a step forward and looked straight at Yi Xiaonan. He said in a deep voice, "If the moon-worshipping sect wants to follow the old path of the Kunlun devil cult, it's fine. But I will be a roadblock today. If you can break through, the entire Shangshuaying clan won't stop you." Yingxi didn't say what would happen if Yi Xiaonan couldn't break through. He knew that Yi Xiaonan already knew the consequences from the moment he made his decision. Why bother? A sigh was heard. Lu Chonglu of the true martial sect had also arrived. He had a horsetail whisk in his left hand and a sword in his right. The horsetail whisk was Ning Xuanji's and the sword was his. "Taoist Lu, don't be so sentimental. The Devil Dao is the Devil Dao. If they could know their place, would they still be called the Devil Dao? If we can't reason with them, we'll reason with our swords." The 3 true fire spirit refinement cultivators from Sword King City had gathered. Shen Tianwang carried an unusually heavy metal box on his back. Yingxi frowned slightly when he saw the 3 from Sword King City. A look of disgust appeared in his eyes. Actually, the reason why these people had come to stop Yi Xiaonan was very simple. Su Ci was the abbot of the Great Light Temple. Regardless of whether he was at true fire spirit refinement or heaven and earth mystic enlightenment, he had to come. And Yingxi wanted to fight to his heart's content before he died. He didn't want to have any regrets. Lu Chonglu came for the entire Jianghu, just like his ancestral master, Ning Xuanji. Only the 3 men from Sword King City had come here with the intention to gain more benefits. At that moment, Yi Xiaonan suddenly looked up. "Those who are supposed to come are all here." As soon as he said that, Yi Xiaonan waved his hand. The moon blade, which was still being refined in the demonic flames, instantly took shape. It shone with dazzling moonlight. When it rose from the demonic flames, it looked like a bright moon in the sky. In an instant, the entire heartbroken cliff was illuminated by the sun and moon. Yi Xiaonan's demonic weapon had long been refined, but he had been waiting for those who were supposed to come. Blood sacrifice for the demonic weapon. The shining moon blade whistled through the air, as if it was cutting through the void. It slashed toward the 3 true fire spirit refinement cultivators from Sword King City. The metal box on Shen Tianwang's back opened, and a blood-stained, broken bronze sword appeared in the air. Although it was only half a broken sword, the aura on it was incomparably frightening and powerful. As it stood in the air, it was like a king had descended. Everything in the world had to bow down to it, and even the yuan energy of the world had involuntarily poured into the broken sword. Heavenly King Shen, Mengyanghe, and Duguli formed sword seals with their hands. Sharp sword chi surged into the human king's sword, and the broken sword instantly blossomed with dazzling light. However, Yi Xiaonan's moon blade slashed through the void with unparalleled sharpness. Under the moonlight, it cut through everything. The void seemed to be split in 2 by the moon blade. There was a loud bang, and the human king's sword was sent flying by the moon blade. A terrifying shockwave erupted in the air, and the sharp chi scattered in all directions. The sword seals of Heavenly King Shen and the other 2 completely collapsed. The 3 of them spat out a mouthful of blood, and their eyes revealed a look of horror. One hit, just one hit, and the human king's sword had already been destroyed. The three of them were immediately seriously injured. This was completely different from what Heavenly King Shen had imagined. How could Yi Xiaonan be so powerful? With a sigh, Su Xiai took a step forward. Countless Buddha shadows appeared around him, densely packed together. Tens of thousands of Buddhas filled the void, and endless Buddhist chants rang out in the air. They transformed into a boundless Buddhist kingdom that enveloped Yi Xiaonan. The black dragon surrounding family's patriarch, Yingxi, roared angrily. The black chi of heaven and earth transformed into a black dragon that circled around him. He threw a punch, and the dragon roared for thousands of miles. The chi of heaven and earth shattered under his punch. Before the punch even landed, the heartbroken cliff under Yi Xiaonan's feet had already begun to shake and crack. The two heaven and earth Elysium cultivators attacked. Their power was like that of immortals and Buddhas. A casual attack seemed to be able to shatter the sky and split the earth. You're tuning into the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.